Hey guys, Nicole here with Obscure Reptiles and Caging, and today I'm going to be showing you how to identify different kind of morphs in ball pythons. So let's get started. Hey guys, so we're going to be showing you guys how to identify different morphs in ball pythons. We're going to start off with a normal, then start showing you more complex genetics like single genes, and we'll show you a couple of different things like recessive and stuff like that, but we're not going to really break down the genetics, more or less just how to identify the different ball pythons. Especially for beginners, this is going to be really helpful so you guys can know what you're looking at. Just remember, all these different ball pythons are really going to vary. This is a normal ball python. The best way to be able to identify it is how black its dark colors are and how it's almost like a greenish brown for the rest of its body tone. People talk about saddles. They don't so much have them for when it comes to normals. It's more or less for snakes that have, it almost looks like actual saddles. Things like lessers and Mojaves have that a lot better, and I'll show you that later. But these guys are, but normals have a lot of variation to them. Some of them can be a lot lighter, some can be even darker, and some of them can have crazy patterns. So this is a normal ball python, and once you compare it side by side to other types of genetics, it's a lot easier to see, but this is a normal ball python. Here is a picture of a normal Mojave. I don't have one right now. Most of mine are multi-gene, but it's a lot easier to tell a Mojave because it looks very similar to a lesser, which is this, except it's darker on the saddles. Saddles, I mean these patterns right here along their back. Normally it comes down their body, and with Mojaves it changes. It's almost like a gradient from light to dark. When you put a phantom next to a Mojave, it's actually, the only really way I've been able to tell is that shading, instead of, you know, light to dark, it's like straight light to dark. There's not so much of a gradient, it just changes a lot quicker. So when you're looking at these things, it's a lot easier to tell when you then compare them to a normal. Once compared to a normal, it makes it easier to see all these different kind of colors and patterns. You get something like a pinstripe. Pinstripe takes away all saddles, it takes away really all pattern, and it just gives you those lines or hash marks. It makes the animal a lot lighter and brighter in color. Once you add things like pastel with the pinstripe, it brightens it. Pastel is known to brighten all genetics. So a great way to know if your pied is a normal pied or if it's a pastel pied is it brighter, is it have more yellows. And another trick, anything with pastel in it will also have green eyes. So if your snake has green eyes, that means it's a pastel, or at least has pastel in the genes. Like a albino is more expensive, or a regular piebald is more expensive than, say, Mojave, lesser pinstripe. It's because you need two to make more. You can't just take a normal to a normal and get a pied. You can take a lesser to a normal and get more lessers and more normals. When you want to do a pied, it has to be a pied to a pied, or a pied to a het pied, or a het pied to a het pied. That's the only way to get pieds. So they're more expensive because you need to have more than one animal with those genes to make more of them. That's the simplest way to put it. So a pied is incredibly easy to identify. A pied has a lot of white on it. It can look like this, it can look like this, and it can look like all of these. Pieds have such a wide variation, that's why I like to focus on them the most. Remember in the beginning when I said just a normal ball python is a pretty good range of colors and patterns? Same exact thing when you have a normal piebald. It's going to have a wide variation for the amount of white it has, for the amount of color, the amount of distortion to the patterns. Normal pieds don't just look like you took a normal and added white to it. It looks like you almost took the patterns and saddles and you morphed it and you made weird shapes and colors in the patterns. Sometimes even pieds have polka dots on them. So the easiest way to know what's in your pied is to know the more basic morphs first. People always want to go, oh, what's this 6-gene snake? What's this 5-gene snake? If you can identify the simple snakes and the simple morphs, it's going to help you a lot to identify what's in something else. So if you know pastel gives you green eyes, and you know pinstripes takes away pattern and gives you those lines. So if you see something with green eyes, it's pretty bright in color, and it's got lines in it, you know now it's a pastel pinstripe. So if you see a pied like that, Doesn't matter the pied's in there or not, you can identify it. There are some very strange genes, like the blue-eyed Lucy complex, which is why I'm going to do a whole video on it. But when you put two colored snakes together, you get a pure white snake with blue eyes, or a pure white snake with a gray head and blue eyes, or even some of them have yellow stripes down their spine, or a lot of gray on them. But that's part of the lesser Mojave, phantom, ivory. That's going to be a whole video because it's so much to break down. But if you see a snake that is white with blue eyes, you know it's at least in that complex. You can't really tell right off the bat if it's Mojave lesser, super lesser, you know, anything like that. There's a lot of snakes that are easy to identify, like a spider. Nothing else looks like a normal spider. A pinstripe kind of does, but if you put a pinstripe right next to a normal spider, you can't miss it. If you put pastel with the spider and you make a bumblebee, that is something that you really can't make any other way. So it's easy to notice. Everyone knows what a banana is. Their most basic form, they are light purples, almost grays, oranges, yellows. When you add other things to it, normally it loses that awesome color pattern. So again, pastels brighten. It will brighten the banana so much it looks washed out. So pastel bananas don't really look better than normal bananas, but it's a 2-gene animal, so that's always good for breeding purposes. When you do things with darker color combinations like cinnamon or black pastel, like if you got a pastel banana, it's going to be very washed out, very brownish in color. But if you mix a cinnamon with that same banana, you're going to amplify and brighten those colors, which is strange because normally pastel brightens, but when it comes to like banana genes, it actually darkens. Knowing these simple genes and simple genetics will help you identify a 6-gene animal. At the end of this, we're going to put a multi-gene animal in, and you guys, I want you to comment what you think it is. If somebody gets it right, then we will come up with something. We'll get you guys a t-shirt or a Twisted Reptile t-shirt, something like that, but we'll put a multi-gene snake in the end of this, and I want you guys to guess what it is. People always like albinos. When it comes to albinos, it's kind of hard to see a lot of other genes when put into it. You get a 2-gene albino, like a pastel albino, it actually lightens that. Sometimes they can have really dark yellows and oranges. Pastel will actually make it kind of look washed out, but again, now you have a 2-gene animal, which is good for breeding, but I don't think it looks as stunning as a normal albino. You put a albino with a cinnamon, but keep in mind albino is recessive. So if you breed the albino to a cinnamon, you're gonna get all cinnamon head albinos. You put that albino to a cinnamon head albino or a cinnamon albino, you're gonna get more cinnamon albinos. One of my favorite genes to work with is called a GHI. This is a normal GHI. It can almost look like a normal ball python, but it doesn't have generally those browns. It has more black and a shatter pattern. It almost kind of looks like static on your TV, and if you can get a really high-end GHI, they look awesome. So when you mix GHI with a lot of things, it drastically changes pattern and it drastically changes the color. For example, a GHI Mojave looks like this. Pure black with a stripe. It's crazy how two pretty simple genes, a GHI is really cool, but it just kind of shatters, and a Mojave is a Mojave, but you put them together and it can make a really stunning animal. Most people know what a clown looks like. If you don't, this is a clown. They're really easy to note. They normally look very similar to like a spider gene. Spiders almost have a pixelated color when it comes to where their stomach and their side meet. Especially when breeding that to like a pastel or pretty much almost anything else, it brings that pixelation to that snake. A clown, it's very easy to tell because one is a recessive gene. So you have to breed a clown just like the pied. You have to have both parents need to have those genetics again to make more with that genetic. One really easy thing that I like to do is if you go online, if you type in ball python calculator, the first one normally that pops up is one from Morph Market. So you can type in any adults that you're thinking about breeding or buying, and you can find out what babies you can produce with them. Not only what babies, what percentage of each different morph, and how much those morphs are selling for right now on Morph Market. So you can go and type in, let's say you have a pastel and a normal. It'll tell you you can get a 50% chance of normals and 50% chance of pastels. You can then click on each and you can see what are dominant, what are codominant, what are recessive genetics, does take a lot to start to learn things. Generally, the easiest would be looking for green eyes in pastels. The shatter pattern from a pinstripe spider gives you that pixelation up the side. Cinnamon, black pastel, darkening genes really darken. A lot of other genes really brighten. But the best thing is to just keep learning, keep trying. It takes a long time, but you will get there. That's it for this video. If you guys have any questions, you can put them in the comments below. If you haven't already, please subscribe. It really helps out, and we do videos every Wednesday. So we'll see you next Wednesday.